The stones didn't sing at first. Not to Ruth. They only hummed, so faintly you'd miss it if you weren't listening, like the breath of a fridge before it clicks on. But in Briar Hollow people listened. Especially those who'd lost someone. Especially her. It was Mrs. Harkness from the chemist who first mentioned them, in that accidental way locals have when they're testing if you're one of us, or not. You ought to walk the hollow, she'd said, tapping a paper bag of paracetamol. The air's good for, you know. After. Ruth had nodded. That was 3 months ago. 3 months since the accident. 3 months since Danny. 3 months since the house had gone silent, except for the post arriving and the kettle boiling and the clock ticking too loud in the living room at 3 a.m. Now Ruth walked. Always just before sunset. Briar Hollow wasn't on any real map. Just a shallow valley tucked behind low hills, where sheep grazed and rain lingered. At the center was a ring of stones, maybe 8, maybe more. Moss-covered. Lichen-cloaked. No signs, no paths, just memory and nettles. They hummed most just after dusk. Ruth found them on her second visit. There was no fence, no gate, only a change in the air. A sort of pressure in the ears, like diving underwater. She stood at the edge of the ring, hands deep in her coat pockets. At first, nothing. Then, hum. It was gentle, like someone tuning a cello in another room. Low and clean. Not unpleasant. Not even strange. Comforting, really. The villagers said the stones had always been there. Some thought they were druidic. Others said Saxon graves. One man in the pub called them the echo choir. Said the ring held on to voices, especially when grief was fresh. He'd been drunk, but his eyes had stayed on hers a moment too long. Ruth never brought flowers. That felt silly. But she spoke. Not prayers. Just fragments. I made shepherd's pie yesterday, she said once. Your favorite. Even though I hate the smell of lamb. The stones didn't answer. But the hum seemed warmer. The first time she heard the voice, it was barely more than a sigh carried on wind. Whum. She froze. Waited. Silence. Then again softer. I'm here. She turned, but no one stood behind her. Her breath fogged. Her hands trembled. She whispered, Danny. Nothing. But the hum lingered, low and golden. Back home she didn't sleep. She replayed the moment in her head. The tone, the rhythm, the way the voice caught on the M, like it always had when he was small. It hadn't sounded like a dream. It sounded like memory. She returned the next night. And the one after that. Every time she heard more. A word. A giggle. A memory spoken back to her in the voice she missed. She didn't question it. Grief makes fools of the rational. Besides, who else had he to speak to if not her? But the humming never stopped now. Even outside the hollow. In the kettle. In the wind. In the tick of the clock. And just before she fell asleep that night, Ruth heard it clearly. Soft. Near her ear. Not Danny. She's nearly ready. The stone circle had no center. Not one she could stand in anyway. No matter where Ruth walked, it felt as though the humming shifted, as though the sound bent around her body, never quite letting her be inside it. So she returned. Each evening, just after the sun dipped below the hedgerows. Each time the stones greeted her with their quiet song. Each time the voice was a little louder. Do you remember the rabbit? It was Danny's voice. So clear she could see the little scar above his left eyebrow, the one from when he tripped over the garden hose chasing a hare in primary school. She whispered back, yes. The voice sighed. I didn't mean to let it out. I was just trying to feed it clover. Ruth felt her knees weaken. She knelt beside one of the stones, ignoring the damp chill that seeped through her jeans. You didn't do anything wrong, she whispered. You were a child. The stone under her palm thrummed in response. For a moment it felt like love. Mrs. Harkness noticed the change first. You look brighter, she said, folding Ruth's receipt. You're not wearing as much black. Ruth hadn't realized. It's the fresh air, she lied. I've been walking more. The chemist nodded approvingly, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. recognition, or maybe pity, or guilt. The next time Ruth visited the Stones, she brought a photo. It was faded, Danny in his school uniform, a wonky smile, one sock down. She tucked it between two stones, careful not to tear it. The Stones hummed louder that evening, harmonizing, and for the first time she heard a second voice. Not Danny. A girl. Young. Whispering. He's coming back. They always come back if you love them enough. Ruth blinked. The air felt too close. The grass seemed to shift beneath her knees. Who? But the voice was already gone. She didn't sleep that night. The hum was everywhere now. He tried white noise. Then music. Then pills. But the song threaded through everything, faint but present. And now it wasn't just voices. It was weeping. The next evening the photo was gone. Ruth searched between the stones. Checked the breeze. The soil. Nothing. Only the humming. But now it sounded hungrier. Like breath caught in a throat. And then clearly, we missed you today. Not Danny. Not the girl. Another. Older. Male. And it spoke with conviction. She stood heart hammering. Her voice cracked. Who are you? No answer. Just the wind. And then, she's beginning to listen. The next morning Ruth called the council. Asked about the Stones. Technically common land, the man on the phone said. Used to be a burial ground, some say. No records. Probably Iron Age. Any deaths there recently? Sorry. Missing persons? He hesitated. Can't help you there. Ruth walked to the village shop. On the corkboard beside the door, among the usual leaflets, car for sale, local babysitter, dog walking services, was a weathered flyer. Almost torn in half, bleached by sun. It showed a young woman. Not local. Have you seen Emily Rourke? Last seen hiking near Briar Hollow. Dated 2 years ago. Ruth stared at the image. And then heard it. Emily, the girl's voice whispered behind her ear. We all wanted someone to hear us. Now you do. She left without buying anything. That night she did not return to the Stones. But the humming followed her anyway. And when she looked into the hallway mirror before bed, the steam from her breath revealed something scrawled across the glass in condensation. Bring flowers. Ruth brought flowers. Wild ones picked from the edge of her own garden. Foxglove, poppies, a few trembling sprigs of forget-me-nots. She'd bundled them in twine like a child might, almost embarrassed by the simplicity. She didn't know why she was obeying the message in the mirror. Not really. But deep down she hoped the offering might quiet the song. It didn't. That evening the Stones hummed like throats warming up. Each note vibrated beneath her feet, through the soles of her shoes. When she knelt to place the flowers between two of the taller stones, she swore the moss pulled slightly like breath drawing in. He liked the red ones, Danny's voice said. It was more distinct now. Less echo, more tone. Like he was present. I know, Ruth whispered. I remember. But then another voice broke in. Not Emily this time, not the man from before. This voice was older. Raw. Masculine. We warned her not to bring them. And then a chorus, layered, staggered, overlapping whispers. She heard. She didn't listen. She wanted to believe. She thought he was different. Ruth clutched her ears. Stop. Silence fell, heavy like a dropped curtain. Then calmly, you're not the first mother to kneel here. Ruth returned home shaken. She made tea she didn't drink. She turned on the radio for distraction, but every station sounded just a little off-key. The hum had changed. It wasn't just in the hollow now, it was inside her. She rifled through old newspapers, local archives, anything that might mention the hollow. In the back of one yellowed edition, nearly 2 decades old, she found a piece titled, Midsummer Disappearance, Still No Leads. The photo was blurry. A woman with tight curls and a nervous smile. Name, June Weatherly. Age, 42. Last seen walking her dog past Briar Hollow. The dog was found. She wasn't. Ruth started making a list. Emily Rourke, 2023. Hiker. June Weatherly, 2004. Dog walker. Ben Carter, 1991. Teenage runaway. Hannah Fields, 1968. Last seen collecting mushrooms. The names appeared more often than she expected. tucked between parish updates and obituaries. Always the same pattern, vanished near the hollow. Always dismissed. No foul play. No remains. Just gone. On her next visit, Ruth didn't bring flowers. She brought questions. She stood outside the circle this time, just beyond the grass ring. The humming was fainter here. Bearable. Who are you? She asked. Pause. Then a single word, echoed by a dozen others. Memory. What do you want? Company. More voices now. Layered like sediment, each with their own tone, accent, history. They forget us. No stones for our graves. We only sing so we're not alone. You can help us remember. Ruth felt tears rise, not just for Danny but for all of them. All the names she'd written, all the ones she hadn't found. Why me? The stones pulsed. You listened. The air shifted. It was subtle at first. A sudden coolness like when a storm front rolls in unannounced. Then the scent of earth after rain. Then something worse. A voice inside her own mouth that was not her own. He didn't mean to drown. She staggered backward. No, she whispered. That's not. But the voice continued, using her own breath, her own lips. He begged me to let go, but I held on too long. I thought if I could just... Ruth slapped her palm to her mouth, shaking. The stones were drawing her. Not just her grief, her guilt. That night, the mirror in the hallway bore a new message. Fogged across the glass in breath-like curls. 3 more. She wiped it away, heart pounding. In her dreams, she heard them sing. One voice was Danny's. The other 2, she didn't recognize yet. Ruth couldn't remember falling asleep. She only remembered waking up, heart racing, nightshirt damp with sweat, the soft sound of a lullaby echoing in her ears. Not just in her ears. In the walls. It stopped the moment she sat up. The mirror was clean. No message. But when she looked into it, she didn't see herself. She saw the hollow, moonlit, still, the ring of stones half buried in fog. And someone kneeling in the center. She leaned closer. The figure turned. It was her. She stayed away from the hollow for a full day. That afternoon she called her sister. I've been thinking about Danny a lot, Ruth said, voice tight. There was a pause. It's his birthday soon. I know. He was always such a brave little... Ruth couldn't help herself. He wasn't brave. Not really. Silence. He was afraid of the dark. Of water. Of everything. Her voice cracked. He hated the creek, but I made him cross it. I said it'd make him stronger. A long pause. You never told me that, her sister said gently. I never told anyone. That evening Ruth returned to the hollow. The stones weren't humming. They were silent. But the silence felt full. Like a held breath. Like a crowd in a theater waiting for the curtain to rise. She stepped into the circle and sat cross-legged in the middle. I'm ready, she said aloud. The stones answered with a slow, resonant chord, like a church organ tuning its throat. Tell us. Ruth's voice was small. It wasn't just the creak. The moss stirred. I yelled at him. That morning. I told him to stop crying. I said he was embarrassing me. Pause. Then another voice, hers again but from outside her. You told him not to tell his dad. She flinched. Yes. You said it was nothing. It was nothing, Ruth whispered. He scraped his knee, that's all. But he was afraid of blood. I thought I was helping. I thought if he stopped whining. He slipped. The words hit like stones themselves. You turned away. You didn't see him go under. Ruth screamed. The song didn't stop. It grew. Not louder, just closer. It was no longer in the stones or the wind or the mirror. It was in her veins. Each beat of her heart drummed with that low hum. A voice spoke inside her chest. Now you understand. Ruth fell to her knees. Please, let me see him. Let me hold him. The air thickened and for a brief second, no more, she felt arms around her. Small arms. Wet. He smelled soap. And pond scum. And sorrow. Then they were gone. And the mirror in her hallway bore a new phrase. You've given us your song. One more remains. She tore the paper list from her fridge, the one where she'd written the names of the missing, and added a final line beneath them. Ruth Harper, 2025. The next morning she visited the vicar. The church stood on the edge of the hollow, empty most weeks. Vicar Stanton was kind-eyed, soft-spoken. He remembered Danny. He offered tea. "Do you believe in haunted places?" she asked him. He chuckled. "Spirits, yes. But not hauntings. The dead don't stay where they're told. What if they sing?" That made him pause. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "You should speak to Molly Tranter." "Who?" "She's the one who first called them the choir. She used to live in the old cottage near the hollow. Years ago. She's alive." "Barely," Stanton said. "Care home out in Eddington. Mine's not all there. But she remembers the stones." Ruth found Molly Tranter the next day. She was 92. Nearly blind. Smelled of talcum powder and old wool. But when Ruth mentioned the hollow, Molly's expression changed. She reached out and gripped Ruth's wrist with surprising strength. "They lie," she rasped. Ruth blinked. "What?" "The stones. They don't want comfort. They want choristers. They want mouths." "What are they?" "Hungry," Molly said. "They don't care if it's grief or guilt. All they need is a crack. A way in." Ruth's throat tightened. "They said I had one song left to give." Molly's eyes turned glassy. "You'll know," she whispered. "They always come for the one you can't forgive." That night the song returned. Stronger than ever. But this time it wasn't Danny's voice. It was Ruth's own. Singing from somewhere beneath the stones. The next morning, Ruth woke to find all the mirrors in her house had turned black. Not shattered. Not fogged. Just black. Flat as slate. Cold to the touch. And in each one she could hear faint breathing. She covered them with old tea towels, blankets, whatever she could find. But the sound didn't stop. It followed her, soft as thread, from room to room. A whisper behind her eyes. She knew what it wanted. At dusk she returned to the hollow with a spade. No pretense now. No denial. She knew where she had to dig. The center of the circle was bare earth, slightly sunken, like a grave that never settled. She stabbed the spade into it harder than necessary and began to dig. The earth was soft, spongy. It pulled at the spade, reluctant. 2 feet down the soil turned black. Then thick. Then wet. She gagged at the smell, rotten iron. Then the spade hit wood. A box. Small. Weathered. Nailed shut. She fell to her knees, clawed it open. Inside, wrapped in a yellowing child's blanket, was a bundle of bones. Not human. Something smaller. She reached out and the bundle breathed. Ruth fell backwards. The air around her vibrated like the air before a thunderclap. Then the stones began to sing. No more humming. A full choir. Men, women, children. Hundreds of voices layered in unison, forming a chord that shouldn't have existed. And through it a solo. Her own voice. Whispering. "You never loved him. Not all of him. Not the part that cried. Not the part that ruined your marriage." He screamed. "I did. I just didn't know how. You didn't want to know." The blanket stirred. The bones inside moved. One brittle finger poked through the edge of the cloth. "One last confession," the stones sang. "And your song is complete." Ruth raised the spade. She should have smashed the bones. Burned the blanket. But her arms trembled. Because she couldn't. Because it was all she had left of Danny. Because maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the voice in the stones. Maybe he was still somewhere. She dropped the spade and whispered, "I wasn't enough." The stones quieted. She went on, voice raw. "I chose the wrong therapist. I ignored the warning signs. I wanted a son who didn't have problems. I tried to fix him instead of loving him." Wind passed through the trees like a sigh. The bones were gone. The box was empty. When she looked up, the hollow was empty too. No stones. No circle. Just grass. Wet and dark. The next day she dug up her garden. Found nothing. She smashed every mirror in her house. The humming stopped. And for a while she believed it was over. Until her sister called. "Ruth. Something strange." "What?" "Then he's been talking in his sleep again. But this time he's using Danny's voice." Ruth said nothing. "He says the hollow is cold. He says he's hungry. And last night he sang to me." "Sang?" "Yeah. A lullaby. Do you remember the one you used to sing too?" Ruth hung up. She looked toward the bramble path that led to the woods. It had grown darker, narrower. The stones were calling again. But this time they didn't want her. They wanted someone new to join the choir.